Welcome, my friends. Here we are. Look at that, man. We got penny matches, dude. Man, you are really autistic about this whole flame thing. Yes! Much like most people, I look better in low lighting. Oh man, do I have something to say? A little bit. I've been doing some thinking. I'm pretty sure I made mention in the last few videos, my whole debacle with the stories, like what I'm trying to figure out with Dove and what I'm trying to figure out with Eris. And it's been kind of difficult to navigate this. I don't know how to do any of this. This is going to get really tough. So here's where we're connecting. Cernunnos, on the possibly that's him on the Goodness of Cauldron, where he's got the torque in one hand and the snake in the other. We have to remember, we have to look into the Vedic similarity, so I can like see how this works. Who's that snake, right? Because I'm just so lost when it comes to this shit. I think I need to connect that to the Dove and the Thief stuff. Somehow. It's a symbol. And what do I represent in that? But in some sense, I've come to a realization through my own life. Because, as I've said so many times before, the book and all of its doings is such a mirror to my own mind, my own understanding of how I see everything around me, how everything affects me, and what the world is to me, as you would imagine art to be. Now, of late, I've been getting to really ponder some of the deeper aspects of, how would I word this, beliefs that I've been kind of taking on and thoughts that have been taking me. And one of the major things is I went back and thought about that dream that I had. I went back and thought about that deer shapeshifter dream. And I got to thinking about it. Now, in my stories, let's kind of zoom away from that for a second. We have something called the Dream Hunter. And the Dream Hunter is kind of like someone who works for the big bad guy. Like, let's say it's in our, what we can understand as like the devil's demon, right? It just, I guess it kind of works for the devil. You know, it does his bidding for him. And this thing has been kind of plaguing Eris. And I thought, well, Eris had this dream where he fought the shapeshifter just as I did. What does that really mean? And I got to realize that maybe that dream I had was some darker entity forcing me to kill some aspect from ancestry. So the thing was, if I was fighting this shape-shifting deer thing and we were to connect it, I guess I realized, to the Vedic stories, I think there's a belief that Rudra is connected to Cernunno, like they're kind of similar archetypes or whatever. And I was like, well, if I fought this Rudra type, and then there's this Prajapati that he was against, well, who was the snake that Cernunnos was holding? Was that? And then I thought, wait a minute, I called Theis the snake, and Theis, and I'm like, oh, that Cernunnos is my Seneu, who is a conveyor of Dove. So if I fought the being that was the conveyor of the what we could consider the good guy, then maybe that was a bad dream. Maybe that dream had me try to destroy that aspect, and I'm coming back from it. And then it just spun me on this whole fucking adventure of my thoughts of how can we return ourselves back to maybe a path that we're meant to be on. Because I've battled it twice in some sense. It was like I have one aspect of me that says we're on the right path, we're going forward. But then there's this other that says, what if that dream was a sign that you might have sided with the wrong spiritual entities? And how can you combat this? Because, you know, what are considered the old gods have been destroyed a long time ago by Christianity. So, like, how do we navigate this fucking thing? How do we navigate it? Okay, well, what if we establish our own through our own mythology? What if we establish our own deities that we can use? And then I got thinking about, I believe, like, you know, Apollo for the Greeks, you know, Zeus and Hera and all them, Mithras to the Romans and, you know, their gods and shit. You know, Rudra and all them for the Indians. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the gods for the different groups of people. Maybe they are archetypes and they are bastions. Like, they are these kind of these husks that you can put so much into to create archetypes, and through that you can access this holy grail of an archetype, which from that, when you access it, you're able to shape your mind and your way of life into that with which they stand for, that which they embody. So if I have my character Dove, what does he stand for? What does he embody? It's all the things that I'm putting in him. So when I lack those things, or I need guidance in such things, I go to the deity to invoke it. I do a ritualistic thing to help me get back into the mindset, and from that point I'm able to use him to gain it again, right? I think that's all the old gods really are. And we've got it all fucked up because of, you know, it's post-Christianity. We were taught it was evil. So whenever you look at folk religion, it's got this tinge of Christianity to it, right? It's almost being comically kind of witchcraftian because that's what it was told that it was. When in reality, I don't think that's really it. I like to believe that these deities, these beings, are merely acting on their own accord because they are archetypes. For instance, I have Dove, right? And he is the progenitor of man. He will be the one that brings man from the forest. He's the one who saved the AOC, the Aeon. He is a savior of a being. What do those things stand for? Well, I'm not really going to get into right now. What does AOC really stand for? And what do the Aeons mean to me? But suffice to say, he is a being that is seen as one that pulls from the nothing. He pulls it into existence and he keeps it safe. He is the wielder of the flame. He is the one who is the enlightened one. He is shown the true way once he learns his real name, and he becomes the guiding factor of what we can consider good. And I put everything like that into it through the story. You're seeing it kind of happen slowly in the Forgotten series. Now, he embodies all those things. I don't have a group of deities that I understand because of Christianity. So what can I do? Well, I'm making my own, and I have Dove. So what I would do is, when I need to have strength in going forward into true enlightenment, I will basically, in a sense, channel Dove. And he will be the guiding force. I'll say, Dove, guide me into it. It's not like I'm necessarily saying, like, yeah, Dove really exists and he's in some other plane and I have to use him. It's he's in my imaginary and he encapsulates all that I put in him. So if I need to access one of the attributes, the skill, or the understandings of him, I need to invoke him through the ritual. And that ritual is how I got myself to it. And that's what I believe religion really is allowing you to find ways into understandings. If you can find ways and understandings through like liturgical shit, you know, ritual, or through some sort of meditation or prayer or a physical practice, it's invoking the archetype that the god or the deity inhabits in some sense that comes to life through what we understand as a thought form, where that thing now, because you put so much into it, it kind of takes on its own life. And it manifests, though it only manifests in the consciousness of those who use it in some way, shape, or form. Why is it so hard to get away from Christianity? Well, everything's tinged by it. Even modern, like pagan religions, because they're counter to it. If you're counter to something in some sense, you still have it within you, right? This has been my journey of trying to unravel all the shit that's been thrown on man. And the only way that I know how to do it is to invoke those beings that I'm creating. So when I need to throw myself in the deepest throes of madness in order to obtain this stuff from the creative realm, I have to channel Opaque, because that's where Opaque's trapped in the stories. He is the archetype for that which with I seek. Which with I seek, however you say that. I don't know if this makes sense to anybody, because I'm just kind of channeling it out. I'm not really, I haven't gathered these thoughts and like, oh yeah, you know. So it's pretty messy, but it's in some sense, I'm trying to say to you that, like, I think how we understand religion is incorrect. I think what we're doing is wrong. And I think in many ways, looking at gods, deities, demigods, the creator, whatever the fuck you want to use, you have to understand they are archetypes of many different things that we place inside of them. They are vessels. I want Dove to embody such things. I have to put such things inside of them. I have to create such stories to invoke that. And through those stories, I'm enabling the ritual into creating it and to letting it flower, to letting it grow, to becoming something. And we do this all the time. We've just confused it. That's why we don't see Superman, Batman, and all that shit the same as going way back in the day and hearing stories about Hercules. This is the same fucking shit. We're just putting different things in it. I'm sure if you went far enough back, they'd be like, yes, Hercules are these stories that were created by such people for such reasons. And it probably would be the very same. But every time we go in the future, it's always like, it must have been ritual. It must have been a practice. It must have been shit like that. Like, I guess, but what isn't ritual, man? My job's ritualistic because I do the same fucking thing every day. Like, is that not a ritual? I go into certain mindsets when I'm doing it. That's not a ritual? You know what I'm saying? Like, what isn't fucking ritual? Get away from that shit, man. So, what I'm trying to tell you basically is, as I've been trying to figure Dove out, I realize that I have to invoke him because I think that I'm being plagued by some darker entities, and I'm connecting the darker entities to what I know as Theis and his snake Anvir. I have to combat that with my Rudra type, my Cernunnos, my Dove, the one that's going to aid me in this process, in getting out of such an issue. Because of late, I've been having a hard time remembering my dreams. I know I'm having them. They're in here. But something's blocking. Something's not allowing me to remember them like I used to. It's very unlike me to sit and go, yeah, I don't know what I dreamt last night. You know, a few months ago, I could tell you every fucking dream that I've had and how many I had at night. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I was very aware of my dreaming states. I felt like I was so conscious during them that I didn't even feel like I slept. I'd wake up, you know, because I wake up about 5 or 6 times a night after a dream. And I would just be like so exhausted because the dreams are exhausting to go through and to live them. And so I'd have to kind of come out of it and be like, man, I need to sleep from that sleep. But now it's not happening anymore. I'm still waking up just as much, but I don't have any memory of what those dreams were. Like very foggy glimpses. Very foggy. Out of 100% of the dream, I remember 2%. And I'm like, this is different. Something is blocking. Some shit's going on that I'm having a really hard time with this. And I believe the connection, I could say it's a darker entity. You could say modern day a demon, you know, whatever you want to use. Yeah, you could use that, but in reality, it's an archetype that's bothering me. It's some sort of embodiment of some darker side of myself that can be embodied into what we would understand as a demonic spirit. Or I would just say a darker spirit. I don't know about demons and shit. That's kind of come to its own life in a thought form sense and is kind of plaguing me a bit. And it's affected me in many different ways, so I thought, well, that must be what we need to investigate. We need to kind of think of this shit a little bit better. And to channel some of those things that are bothering us. I don't know how much of that will make sense to anybody. But I don't know how to explain it to you, man. Like, I've been really trying my best to really get on a different spectrum. To really become my own. To really find myself in that, the shit that I'm doing. My mythology is merely a reflection of it. And through that reflection, its own personal mirror, I have to come up with my own realizations of things, and it's not really going to match common beliefs, and so it comes across as insane to some people. To other people it doesn't. I don't know who you are, and everyone has a different idea of what anything is, right? The hardest part in my life was to eliminate all of those things that have connections. Do you remember some time ago I was telling you about that guy Descartes and how his famous saying was, I think, therefore I am, the philosophy of it. And in some sense, that's kind of what I'm seeking to do too, right? I'm trying to throw away everything that I thought I knew and reestablishing my own belief system from that, in a sense, right? Well, in doing that, I had to walk away from so much, because the farther back I would go in history, because I'm always trying to do it through history of mankind, I would realize, like, holy fuck, this is all connected. I can't go back to this time. Like, if I want to go to pre-Christian time, if I want to find anything, it's almost impossible, because everything is through the glasses of it. Even like, you ever heard of folk horror movies? It's always kind of this witchcraft stuff. It's always this like the movie The Wicker Man, or some of these other ones, and it's always makes paganism kind of seem evilish because they're evoking old gods, and those old gods are like demonic. That's just through a Christian lens. You're trying to do the thing before Christianity, but you can't stop thinking like it's so against Christianity that you want it to kind of mirror that. Does that make sense? If you believe you don't like Christianity and you want to do old god stuff, you're going to view the old god stuff the way they want you to. And that's like evil and untrustworthy beings, and they will do this and that. And, you know, it's demonic in some sense. And it's a lot about human sacrifice, and you have to do all these dark things. It's like, or not. So I have to go before that even. And that's when I'm starting to realize archetypes, and I'm starting to realize thought forms, and how this is all connected, that gods are merely the things that we put inside of them, and they become their own vessel of whatever it is you imbue the god with. If you have a god of fertility, and you're always putting these thoughts into that, and every time you do ritual, you're going into this otherworldly realm, the imaginary, you have to place inside of that place your ritualistic sacrifice, whatever that may be, you know, from crops to, you know, your sanctity to your fucking, your lust, or I don't know, whatever the fuck people do with their rituals. You have to go into the imaginary because it always exists in your mind. If you're going inside of this imaginary and putting these beliefs into this god, he becomes that. It doesn't mean you manifested him and he's going to like pop up one day and start talking to you. That's just yourself through the archetypes that he embodies. So you can kind of put a face to the name. And I mean, I've talked about this in so many different fragmentary ways, but in some sense, seeking out old gods should be seeking out archetypes of mankind. You know, you like your Jung, and you like your Nietzsche, or whatever. And you like the Alan Watts and stuff. They're kind of on that in a sense. They're really talking about it. They have their own language to it. But I really believe that to understand it truly, we need to know that the gods are just ourselves. You know, we can put names onto them. And they embody that. So this god of fucking fertility, now every time I think about it, I put that thing in its place, and so it becomes that. And now whenever I need to, you know, I'm having problems with my fertility, if I feel like I'm invoking this god, I'm putting that in my mind, and it's allowing me to, kind of like a placebo in a sense, make something better for whatever fertility issues I'm having. That's a very old thought, because we don't really think of it like that anymore, do we? A fertility god, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not something that we think about, so it seems so foreign. But that's an example I thought of off the top of my head, because I'm tired. I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm trying to like explain this to you, but at the same time, just like, I'm just so weary. I don't know how much of that can really make sense to anybody, and I don't know a clear, more concise way to explain it, but besides what I've said, and I really believe that we are kind of, in many ways, we should return to this, because, man, the farther back you go, the more upsetting you become at what the world is. Like, what did the Crusades do to our modern world? It's fucking insane. Like the Northern Crusades with the Teutonic Knights going into Prussia and all that. It changed my way. I didn't even. It just changed. I was so flabbergasted by that, because, you know, my understanding was Prussians are like kind of like Germans. I didn't realize that they were their own Baltic people taken over by these fucking Christian Germans, and then they become a Germanic type of people, the Prussians, who were still in existence in the 1700s, and that's why we think of them as Germanic in a sense, but they never were. Because these Baltic people, as we would understand them now as Baltic people, were actually fucking pagans and stuff, and the Teutonic Knights were utilizing the same romantic shit. It's like, if we force thoughts on people, then we can unite in a structured way. Of course you're going to crumble all the fucking petty kingdoms. The same things you did to the Irish, to the British. The same things that happened to the peoples of Europe, the Celtic peoples that were taken over by, you know, the Gauls and stuff, or the Romans. It's like, it's the same fucking process happening again and again. And what's behind it is might. And that's what I was saying, like, just trying to get away from all that, because the farther back you go, the more you're like, man, our whole known history is bullshit. It fucking sucks. All the good stuff is forgotten. I want to know about peoples that are gone now. And so, like, that's the kind of tinging that's been happening, where I just have to come up with my own reasons of life. Because I realized the farther back I went, the more I realized it's all the fucking same. And that the society has always been this dominating fucking force of forced opinions. From religion to philosophy to science, they're just forcing shit on you. And you just can't win. So I kind of find myself now just, shit, like, I'm going to have to rely on my own understanding of it. My belief of what the gods are is going to fly in the face of most people. They're going to be like, that's fucking stupid. That's not what they are. You know what I'm saying? And of course they're going to fucking think that. Why wouldn't they? They're in a bubble. You know what I'm saying? So this whole journey, and when I tie it back into the book and stuff, it's been about finding Eris and Dove. And that's my realization. Like, I'm going to have to just go it alone. There is not a fucking thing that I can do in order to get help. That's been the story of my life. I've always wanted a mentor. I always wanted someone to help me and to aid me. And every time I try to find one, I'm just disappointed. Or I find they're just trying to steer me down some fucking dogmatic road. Or they want me to just follow, just follow this with me. And I'm like, I want help to find myself. And it just dawns on me like, dude, then you have to do it yourself. You can't rely on anything. From science to religion to philosophy. You can't rely on any of that fucking shit. You have to throw it all away. They've thought about it for all their years, and you can look at it. But at the end of the day, man, it's going to be, this is your fucking journey. So when I'm coming out here and telling you that gods are archetypes that you can create, and they can embody themselves through your own imagination, which is another world in and of itself, And that other world is, we consider the imagination. To invoke them, you have to do the ritualistic process of going into that imaginary. You have to leave some sense of reality in the imaginary, so when you pull back, the imaginary comes back into the reality, and you can use that archetype with all the gathered thoughts that it imbues to allow you to channel it in that moment. It becomes a fucking vehicle. For me to say that, it comes across like, well, that's fucking utter insanity. But in my world, it's like, that's the only way that I can make sense of anything. Because I've lived at such a point where I just feel like the more I listen to others, the more I'm confused of what they think shit is. I don't care how smart they are. I don't care what religion they follow or what things they've memorized, because that's what intelligence really is. I just memorize a bunch of other people's shit. Nothing makes sense to me. So we're by ourselves. And to do that, I guess that is the downfall of man in my mind. Held in such high regard for so long, I finally realized it's me. I'm just going to have to trust myself and to go by myself into this. And you keep waiting for a fucking savior, you're going to be disappointed. And that's figuratively, of course. You know, I know that someone would think that's with Christianity and stuff, and I don't know about that. But I will say this. I'm at least humbled enough to tell you that I could be all wrong, and then my whole life was wasted making mistakes. I don't have this brain where I think like, and then my way's the best way, and I need to change other people's minds. Like, I don't think that one bit. I just believe that here's my own way to it, and if it's wrong, oh well. I mean, no harm to anyone else, right? I have to explore this. I have to try, at the very least, if it feels right. And no one will understand it. That's... who cares if people don't understand it? You can walk away from this at any time. I can't. I have to continue this road. But anyway, I gotta get going. This is my second video attempt of the day. Let's hope this one doesn't get corrupted too. But I shall see you in the next one.